How many of you have attended Charan Prabhu's lecture before? So you all know how wonderful his lectures are. And that is why you are all here again. And we are very happy that Prabhuji is back here. This year it was a little bit tricky, and we were thinking that somehow or other, because of visa issues and whatever, we were thinking that Prabhuji may not be able to arrive. But by Krishna's arrangement, immigration Devta became very happy. And then finally Prabhu received a visa. And then not only for 1 year, now he has received for 3 years. So we are now assured that Prabhuji can come here at least for 3 years, and then we will apply for his visa again. So many of you know about Prabhuji, but some of you are here for the first time. So I'll quickly introduce him. So Prabhuji is in Krishna consciousness, or he had joined his movement after he has done his engineering in electronics and telecommunication subject from a very reputed college in India. And he got introduced in 1996. So he is practicing this process of Bhakti Yoga for more than 20 years. He travels to many countries. So of course he comes to New Zealand. So he has been coming for last 3 years, including this year. But he goes to Australia, America, UK, and many other places. And not only he speaks to the devotees like all of us, but he also gives talks in various reputed universities like Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, Cambridge, and he goes to various different corporates. So he has given talks at Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Intel, and he has also started his corporate outreach to very wonderful New Zealand companies as well. So today he was speaking at IAG, and yesterday he had spoken at BNZ. And very interesting that his talks were so appreciated. In BNZ we had around 40 people who attended, and his video was taken and it was posted on the intranet. So more than 150 people have seen that video by now, just in one day. And they are very appreciative of the topic that he covered. So we are very, very fortunate to have Prabhuji here. He has written, last time those who were here and you bought so many books, so we have some more books today, and we will talk about that towards the end. But he has written around 25 books. He has written hundreds of articles, and he has 3 main websites through which he publishes articles as well as his videos. So ChaitanyaCharan.com, spiritualscientist.com, and GitaDaily.com. And through GitaDaily.com he sends one article every day on Bhagavad Gita, one shloka. So he writes those articles every day. You can subscribe to them, and you will get those in your email every single day. So in 1 year you will complete the entire Bhagavad Gita. That way. Probably 2 years. There are 700 verses. So he is doing other services as well. So he is part of the Shastrik Advisory Committee of ISKCON. He is also associate editor for ISKCON's global magazine Back to Godhead. And there are many other services that he does, but we'll stop here. Otherwise, we'll be introducing him for 15-20 more minutes, and I'm sure you are very eager to hear from him. So please welcome him with a loud Hare Krishna chanting of Mahamantra. Let's start. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much.
ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। वाचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming today. And am I audible to everyone behind? Yeah, okay. So I'll be speaking on the topic of relationships and how we can improve them. So I'll tell right in the beginning the basic point. Everything will be the elaboration of that point. Whenever people complain that they have a headache, quite often they have a stomachache. What I mean by this is that often whenever there are relationship issues, the surface issue and the actual issue are two different things. And we keep treating the headache and we keep treating the headache. I'm doing so much treatment, but why is the headache not going away? Because the headache is not the problem. The stomachache is the problem. So I'll talk about a story from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This story also comes in the other Puranas with slightly different stress or variations. But overall, this is the story in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which illustrates how relationships can go south and what can be done to avoid that. In the story of Daksha Prajapati, let's keep next to one level. It is okay what we have earlier. Okay, seems a bit louder, volume can okay. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Is comfortably audible? Please. Okay. Thank you. So this is the story where Daksha Prajapati and his wife and his daughter Dakshayani, they got completely alienated from each other. So sometimes the scripture teaches us what to do by showing what happens when we don't do what we should do. That means there can be good examples and there will be good bad examples. That is something is a negative example, but it is a good example in the sense that it very vividly illustrates the principles over there. So, the story begins with Daksha Prajapati performing yajna. Now the Bhagavatam broadly describes a universe which is multi-level. And the earth is one level and beyond that there are other levels also. So once Srila Prabhupada was asked, is there life on other planets? And Prabhupada said, of course. Why would Krishna waste so much space? We see on the earth, even a small crack on the ground, you'll see some ants or some insects inside that. So we see if the earth is so densely populated, why would there not be life elsewhere? All that we can say with our today's reductionistic approach of science is life as we know it has not been discovered on other planets. Now, although scripture talks about many things which may, to a rational mind, seem difficult to believe. Okay, there's a heavenly planet, or there are demons, or there are talking monkeys, or whatever. Well, the point of scripture is to focus on action. That means, if you look at demons, so Ravan can have 10 heads, but he can be a very powerful demon. But still, that doesn't mean he can do everything. There are certain things he can do, certain things he can't do. And the basic principle is that everybody throughout their life tries to address their desires within their limitations. If you want to understand our life, anyone's life, basically we all have certain desires and we have certain limitations. Now, the particular desires we have may be different. The particular limitations we have may be different. But broadly, how to address our desires within our limitations, that is the essential principle, or that is essential thread that describes everyone's life story. And the details vary, of course, and they can vary quite dramatically. But any story, if we want to consider, broadly speaking, the person in a particular situation, that situation is disrupted because of a particular reason. Say, the situation is disrupted because there's something wrong with that situation. And when they're disrupted, then they get into an unstable situation. And then from that unstable situation, they try to come back to a more evolved, stable situation. So that's if you consider Ramayana, Ram is an Ayodhya. It's a stable, comfortable situation. But it's eruption. He's sent to the forest. And then there's conflict. And then Ravan is brought down, and then Ram and Sita are united and they come back. So the point is that beyond the specifics of the limitations, beyond the specifics of the situations, the principles that are given in scripture about how to act and how not to act, those are universal. And even Arjuna's question at the start of the Bhagavad Gita is about that. Prachami tvam dharma sampurna chetaha. I'm asking you, what is dharma? And dharma essentially is the right course of action. That action which will keep us in harmony with our nature and the nature of reality. So, when we look at any story, we can look at it from different perspectives. If somebody is very rational and skeptical, hey, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. And this is all, people might say this is just fantasy, this is mythology. Somebody else might look at the story and say, hey, there's a lot of action, a lot of drama, a lot of entertainment in the story. We may like that. Or we can look at the story in terms of what it talks about, how people respond in various situations, and then what we can learn from that. So basically, scripture is not, there are two kinds of studies. There is the study of matter and then the study of what matters. The study of matter is about the study of objective reality. What really exists? The study of what matters is what is really important for us. And say for example, now you are in this room. If tomorrow morning or afternoon somebody asks you, can you describe this room? You would probably describe, well, there was a big hall with many chairs and there was some kind of improvised dais where the speaker was sitting, and there was a kid's room behind. Now you could actually describe, say, the room had probably maybe 25 tube lights. Now, how many of us would you notice that? If we were in the profession of being an electrician, you would surely notice that. But otherwise, you would notice that. It said that carefully, on an average wall you can find about 100 to 200 marks. But that doesn't matter to him. So in general, whenever we look at anything, we basically look at it not in terms of what it is, as what matters to you. That means when you come into this room, unless we are into house construction, we are not so much concerned about what the building is made of. But what does it matter? Okay, if you need a chair to sit on, is it a comfortable chair? Is the chair with the backrest? Is the acoustics of the room good? So basically, when we look at the world, we don't focus on matter as in what matters. And what matters means, if you come here for a class, then what will help you get along the way and what will get in your way. There are two main things you focus on. Get along your way means, say if you want to hear the class attentively, then what will be the best way to, maybe you should sit ahead, or maybe you sit where the acoustics are very good. And what will get in your way. Maybe if you sit next to somebody who keeps nudging you and whispering something, or who don't switch off their phone and the phone keeps ringing, then you might say, okay, I don't want to sit with this person. So basically, if you look at our life, the way we function, our focus is always on what matters. So when you are in this room, what matters is, okay, what can help you get along the way to hear your attentive, what will get in your way of hearing attentive. And that's how we look at everything. And now matter matters, but only to the extent it comes along our way. It either helps us or it impedes us. So, now when we look at the scriptures, so why I'm giving this background is, in this story, there are many things which might strike us as what's going on over here. But we need to keep our focus. So basically, Daksha is going to perform a sacrifice. Now these sacrifices were as much religious events, religious ceremonies, as their social events. And social events means that when a large number of people are coming, then if some very important people are coming, they are specially greeted, their names are announced, they are given special seats. And other people are also given seats. But if there is a social event, there is a hierarchy in it. Who is given what position, who is given how much attention. So when the sacrifices are performed, the whole idea of sacrifices is, religious activities are not meant to be simply religious activities. There is also the idea of socially coming together and seeing everyone. So Daksha, he was going to perform the sacrifice. He was going to do a yajna, but by doing the yajna, he also invited all the devatas. And the yajna is basically a way in which we offer what is dear for us to something higher than us. So it could be ghee, it could be grains, but we offer that to something higher as a matter of sacrifice. So now there are various devatas who were also given the sacrifice, and the Supreme Lord was also given the sacrifice. Now when the devatas were given the sacrifices, they all had particular seats where they would be seated and the sacrifice would be performed for them. So then everybody was appropriately seated and honored, and then Daksha came after that. In some cases, sometimes if the program is being organized, the organizer might themselves be there to receive everyone. But if the organizer is a very big person, they may have their assistants who may receive them, and the organizer comes later. So Daksha, he considered himself to be a very big person. So when he came, everybody got up. Everybody got up. But two people didn't get up. Does anyone know who were the two people? Yeah. And Shiva and Brahma. Yes, thank you. So, what happened was, now Brahma of course was much older to him. He is like a father figure for him. And therefore, he was He said he didn't mind. But Shiva, what happened was Shiva was absorbed in thoughts of Vishnu. And he was absorbed in thoughts of Vishnu and he didn't get up at that time. So what happens that each of us, when we do certain things, so the yajna was so, as I said, it's a religious ceremony, but for him it was also a prestige issue. So when we are interacting with people, different people have different needs. Now we could say it's a need of the ego or it's a need of the heart or whatever, but they have a particular need. And if that need is not fulfilled, of course we may not be needed to fulfill that need, somebody else can fulfill it, or it need not be fulfilled also. But the point is, when that need is not fulfilled, then people overreact. So whenever we are interacting with people, we will be talking with them, dealing with them courteously or whatever, we need to try to ask ourselves, what is the need of the person? And this understanding this is so this was, I will talk about relationships, what I will talk about understanding each other or understanding others. The first point is understand what is the need of the other person. So his need was not just to have all these big people come for the sacrifice. His need was also that they should all respect me. Now we are all related with each other in various ways. Say for example, there is a devotee in India. He told me about his story that he became a devotee, and then after that his father became a devotee and his grandfather became a devotee, and he was young. So then after he became a devotee, he became initiated, and then after that his father also got initiated, his grandfather also got initiated. So then when the initiation was happening, his spiritual master told him, so your grandfather is now your godbrother. And not just your godbrother, he just laughed and said, your grandfather is your junior godbrother. now, if you could say, in the material relationship, the grandfather is much, much older than us. And our grandfather is a person whom we should respect. Now from the spiritual perspective, you say, oh, I was initiated 5 years before or 10 years before, whatever. Now we could relate with different people in different ways. And sometimes we might emphasize one particular relationship, but one particular dimension of the relationship. And others might emphasize another dimension of the relationship. So in the cosmic hierarchy, Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu are the highest of the devas. And Daksha is relatively junior. Of course, he's Prajapati. So, in that sense, for Shiva to get up when Daksha has come is not required. But Daksha was thinking of that relationship not in terms of the overall position in the cosmic hierarchy. He was looking at the relationship in his immediate relationship. And Daksha had given his daughter in marriage to Shiva. So he felt that I am the father-in-law and he is my son-in-law. And in that sense, in the relationship, he is junior. So first of all, he had done this whole ceremony not just to get religious piety, but to get prestige and respect. And on top of that, he expected that from Shiva because he saw that relationship first. So what happens when we relate with people, we can relate in different dimensions. But we all need to understand in what is the need of the person. So of course, Lord Shiva did not deliberately neglect him. He was just absorbed in thoughts of Vishnu and he was offering in his mind respects to Vishnu. So Daksha took great offense. How dare you not respect me? And then he started speaking something. Now sometimes when people say, I don't mean to offend you. If somebody says that, you can almost be sure that what they are going to say after that is going to be offensive. So quite often, we give a disclaimer and then do the very thing which we are claiming we are not doing. Now of course, our intentions may not be like that. But what happened, Daksha, first thing he said is, I am not worried about my own prestige and pride. I am concerned about the ways of cultured people. And cultured people know how to respect, how to honor each other. And Daksha, by not getting up, Shiva, by not getting up, has shown us that he is utterly uncultured. You may say that, okay, I didn't get up, why make such a big deal out of it? See, whenever anybody makes a big deal out of it, we can tell them, keep it small. But for them, if that was their need primarily, and if that is not addressed, then they just go crazy. So in this case, his need was for his glory to be recognized, his prestige to be recognized. And then that doesn't happen. He just goes on a tirade, criticizing Shiva left, right. And this happens. Shiva just decides that this is going crazy. He just walks away from it. He doesn't at all respond. Now when sometimes people get angry, people just lose track. What is the best way to respond? It's very difficult to decide that. But in general, whenever somebody is angry, to try to reason with them at that time is very difficult. And to try to counter them, it also doesn't work. Now this is not to walk away at all times. But sometimes, when the other person is too provoked and no discussion is possible, that might be the best way. Because at least at that time, things will get escalated. And later on the person may calm down and things may be addressed. So anyway, when Daksha saw Shiva walking away, he felt even more anger. Now what happens is, we see people from our perspective. And now Shiva's thought was, he's just gone mad now. Let me not try to, I can't reason with him. And so he walked away. But at that time, Daksha thought, yes, first he has committed an offense, and without apologizing, he is walking out. So it just reinforced his own idea about what he was doing. This is quite a problem. See, anger gives us the conviction of certainty. This is how it is. When we are angry, I know this person is like this and this is like this. And just thought, I know everything. When people are angry, they just go mad. I was at a conflict resolution meeting, mediation, and there were two people. So one person came and said to the other person, I know you are angry with me. The other person, I'm not angry with you. Anger is an expensive emotion, and you are not worth it. Now, because there are very, very different ways of destroying any attempt at reconciliation. But this is probably one of the most cold-hearted ways. Sometimes it happens that we just have our own understanding of things and we live within that. So anyway, this incident ended. Now when Shiva went away, then of course Parvati also, Dakshani also went away. And then, after some time, Daksha was going to perform another sacrifice. So the first point is whenever, like the overall thing I'm going to talk about is when people complain of a headache, they have a stomach ache. So the problem here was not just that apparently Shiva did it. It was Daksha who felt that his need to be respected had not been addressed. And he said one more point over there, that our relationship with each other, our interactions are like, there are multiple levels of complexity in the relationships. So he had felt originally that Shiva was not a worthy son-in-law for him. He had thought that his daughter is so beautiful and Shiva is so poor and he's not even very, he doesn't live in a clean place, doesn't seem to have clean habits. He couldn't understand what Shiva was doing. So because of that, he already felt that he was unworthy, and then he also seemed to behave in an unworthy way. So the next time, when he did a sacrifice, he invited everyone. But he chose not to invite Shiva. And of course that meant he did not invite his daughter Dakshayani also. And normally, if there is a social event, a major social event, everybody comes to know about it. So then, Dakshayani, she told Shiva, there is this, let us go there. Let us go there. And Shiva said, we not been invited. Let's not. So then Dakshayani said, we don't need an invitation. Son, you don't know that house. It's just my own home. I don't need an invitation to go there. He says, no. Shiva, you know what happened last time. If you're not been invited, best to not go there. So now here, what happens is that when we have a particular desire to do a particular thing, and somebody tells us, don't do it, what can be protection can seem as restriction. So what happened over here is, Dakshayani had this desire. So okay, she felt, this whole thing I'm going on is that the issue was one thing, but she saw it in some other way. So what did she say? So why does my husband not want me to go? Why is he restricting me like this? Why is he keeping me away from my family? And now Shiva's intention was, let the tempers go down. Eventually things will be resolved. His point was not that he didn't want to alienate her or keep her away from her family. But his intention was just avoid further provocation. But whenever, say, somebody stops us from doing something, often we see that person, don't do like this, we see them as restricting us. So now how do we decide what is a restriction and what is protection? In a sense, if a child is told, don't go out of, you can play, but don't go out of this gate, play inside. The child will say, I can't go outside, I won't play. And there's so much bigger place to play outside. Now we understand that, yes, the child does not understand that the world is filled with so many different dangers. And those dangers can befall the child at any moment. But the child who is not aware of the dangers, at that time the child is thinking, why are my parents so restrictive? So we could say the difference between restriction and protection is based on the perception of danger. So for the child, the place outside the courtyard, place outside the fence, is the place for enjoyment. Is the play is the place for having fun. But for the parents, that is a place of danger. So when one person is saying, I want to do this, the other person is saying, no, don't do this. So often what happens, both of them get caught. I want to do this. No, you should not do this. But if you shift the vision outwards, as long as the parent is seeing the outside place as a place of danger, and the child is seeing that as a place of fun, that conflict is not going to be resolved. And the parent may label the child as disobedient, and child may conceive the parent as domineering. So basically, it's not so much whenever we tell someone to do something. See, sometimes what happens for us, it is very obvious. Why you should not do this? But what is obvious for us may not be obvious for the other person. So unless we explain our rationale, why you are doing something and why something should be done and why something should not be done, things can sometimes just, a certain instruction or a certain restriction can simply alienate people from each other. So Prabhupada told one of his prominent disciples who was doing college outreach in America, he said the worst, when you are sharing Krishna consciousness in the colleges in America, he says the worst thing you can do is present Krishna consciousness as a set of rules and regulations. This present Krishna consciousness is a philosophy as a worldview that helps us to make sense of life. And once you do that, then the rules and regulations will automatically make sense. But if we don't tell that, sometimes we can see the consequences of particular actions very easily, but others can't. So whenever there is a misunderstanding, or whenever there is a conflict, and we are telling somebody don't do this, they say I want to do it. So rather than just labeling the other person, so the first point I said is that understand the need of the other person. What is this person looking for? The second point is understand the perception of the other person. Need is what do they need internally. Perception is how are they seeing externally. So Dakshinayani saw that yajna ceremony as a place of getting together with their family. Since we are all, it's a social occasion, my family is organizing, I want to be with them. But Shiva saw that same place as a place for the aggravation of the existing conflict. And whenever we talk, often I tell you do this and I tell you don't do this. And what happens, as long as we stay fixed in seeing things from our perspective, and others just don't see our perspective. So before we can actually tell someone what to do, we have to at least try to explain to them what we are seeing. And once we show them what we are seeing, it's like, say, if there's a ditch over here, but I can't see the ditch and I want to walk. And you tell me, don't walk over here. But then why not? Now, suppose it's not exactly a ditch, it's a swamp. And on top there is a nice grass, but if I walk over there, I'm going to fall in it. Then if you have some special lens by which you can see it, then if you just offer me that lens, have a look, this is what I see. And that's why I think you should do this. Can you look through this and I put on the lens? Oh, I should not go here. I should not go here. So basically, often, again, see, we can easily, you're not listening to me, you're not listening to me. And we can label each other as domineering or disobedient or insubordinate or whatever. But we need to understand their perception. And then their perception may be correct and we may, okay, if you think it like that, then we will do it. But their perception may not be correct. It may be incomplete or it may be incorrect. And then we need to we need to share our perception, how we see things. But unfortunately, Dakshayani did not see things that way. And because she did not see things that way, she said, I'm going to go there. And when she went there, she came there and her mother and her sisters greeted her very warmly. But her father paid no attention to her at all. And when that happened, she felt so bitterly hurt by it. She did not want an effusive public display of affection. Just a simple human acknowledgement. But she did not get that from it. Sometimes silence can speak more than words. And sometimes silence can hurt more than words also. So especially neglect. If somebody insults us, that's somebody yells at us, that's bad. But if somebody neglects us, that can be even more painful. Because when they are yelling at us, at least they are acknowledging our existence. But if they neglect us, it's as if we don't count at all. It can be unbearably painful. Sometimes in every relationship we have certain expectations of how the other person should act with us. And if we know somebody is a critic, somebody is an enemy, and then they speak harsh words at us, harsh words, they hurt. But we come to expect that. We know this is what I'm going to get from this person. But if somebody who we expect is our friend, our well-wisher, our supporter, and then that person doesn't speak any words in support for us, and the harshest words of our critics may not hurt us as much as the silence of our friends. So in this case, the silence of her father hurt her terribly. She had come. Now what happens? We are all very vulnerable. And generally we go through life by concealing our vulnerability. And to some extent that is required because the world is a tough place. And everybody is in this competitive world looking for weaknesses in others so that they can exploit those weaknesses. So in that sense, we have to put say a certain amount of shield around ourselves by which we act tough. But still, there is this vulnerability and weakness are two different things. Weakness means that we have some, say, lust, anger, greed, envy, pride. These are some moral blemishes or moral flaws. Whereas vulnerability is something where we can be hurt very easily. So vulnerability is just that somebody might have an image of power, self-confidence and self-sufficiency and power, and we'll be impressed by that. But to connect at a heart-to-heart level, we need to see that person as a human being. And to see them as a human being means we need to see their vulnerabilities. So that's why we see Krishna in Vrindavan doesn't act as God. God doesn't need anything from anyone. God is omnipotent. And then in every relationship, we want to feel needed to some extent. Not in an egoistic sense, but we want to feel needed. Yes, I can contribute to it. I can do something about it. And if you don't feel needed at all, then you start thinking, what am I doing in this relationship? So for a devotee to connect very closely with the Lord, even the Lord conceals his omnipotence. And we could say he reveals his vulnerability. His vulnerability is what? When he feels hungry, he goes to the relation and he says, I'm hungry, give me some food. And seeing his vulnerability creates an upswelling of affection within her heart. And she comes closer to him. So if we sometimes feel that we want to come closer to someone, then we need to put our shield aside and we need to share our concerns, our vulnerabilities. And then the other person may also reciprocally share their vulnerabilities. And that's how we come closer to each other. The point I'm making here is that we all have vulnerabilities. And now when Dakshayani had come over here, she had actually put herself in a very vulnerable position. Because it is a social occasion and not only was her husband not with her, she had actually gone against the will of her husband and come over there. And she had done that for what? To be with her father and his family. So she had already gone against her husband's will, and then she saw her father did not even acknowledge her. So that hurt her terribly. So what happened over here is, the point, this is the third point, that when understand people's vulnerabilities to help them, not hurt them. So when we are relating with each other, sometimes some people share something which is very confidential, which is very private, which has been maybe like a harrowing experience in their life. Or they might be going through some experience. And if at that time we help them a little bit, they will be forever grateful to us. And if at that time we neglect them, it can be a terrible, terrible strain or wound in the relationship. It's just like, say, I tell someone, can I have a glass of water? And if somebody gives a glass of water, I'll say, thank you, I'm grateful. But suppose I'm in a desert, and in the desert I'm stumbling and I come to a house and I'm dying of thirst. And I knock on the door. Can I have a glass of water? And at that time somebody gives, the glass of water is the same, but there the vulnerability is much more. So at that time, when somebody is vulnerable, at that time giving something or not giving something can matter much, much more than at other times. That's why now generally people don't reveal their vulnerabilities at once. It's only in close relationships or with people who they trust, it starts slowly revealing their vulnerabilities. And if we use the knowledge of someone's vulnerability to hurt them, then it's almost like sounding the death knell of that relationship. Because when the vulnerability is revealed, and it's like they are trusting us. And at that time, if we use the knowledge of their vulnerability not to help them but to hurt them, then that is like a betrayal. And then the relationship is completely clamped down. And that is precisely what happened over it. Now Daksha obviously saw that Dakshayani has come without Shiva. But still he neglected her. Still he neglected her. And when he neglected her, she felt completely desolate. The most we all feel lonely at times. But sometimes loneliness is of different kinds. Sometimes you may hear of some stories where somebody is lost on an island with nobody around and you don't have anyone to talk with. Well, having no human beings around you is one kind of loneliness. But even more painful loneliness comes when we feel, when we are surrounded with people who don't value us and who don't understand us. That's extremely painful. So sometimes somebody might be in a crowded metro train with maybe hundreds of people around them, but they might be lonely. Because in that crowded situation, everybody is like a fragmented being. There's no connection. So nobody really may be valuing anyone else, nobody may understand anyone else. So at that time, in her vulnerability, when he did not pay attention to her, he neglected her. That hurt terribly. Now we all are caught in our own thoughts and we are all caught in our own desires, we are caught in our own concerns, and that's understandable. We all have many issues which we are dealing with. But at the same time, when somebody, we know they have a particular issue, or they have a particular problem, they have a particular vulnerability, and if they approach us at that time we need to get out of ourselves, get out of our own small world, and do what is required for them. But if we don't get out of our world, then it can be a big problem. So, many times it happens that, say when we give a class, sometimes I have seen, I speak something and some devotees after come back, this was like a life-changing class for me. Really? I said, I didn't think I spoke anything life-changing. But what happens, sometimes Krishna may use us to speak, and then I ask them, what was the life-changing point? And then they mention some point, and that point was not even a point I had prepared in the class. It was like I was speaking some other point, and while that speaking some other point, I just mentioned that as a passing reference, some additional point. But that's what struck them. So what happens, sometimes Krishna may use us to address somebody else's need when they need it. And if somebody is particularly vulnerable at that time, if we can assist them, it can be an enormous help. So now here it's important to recognize that different people have different vulnerabilities. And to understand each other means to understand where is this person particularly vulnerable. And if we are to be in a relationship, we need to protect each other. Okay, this is your vulnerability, I'll protect you. This is my vulnerability, I'll protect you. But if we don't do that, then we in a sense, wound the trust in a way that might be almost irrevocable. And this brings me to the last point. So that we have question answers and further feedback also, further discussion on this. But I started earlier by talking about how we have different dimensions in our relationships. So then, the last point is that why would Daksha neglect his own daughter like this? In fact, Daksha felt very, very disappointed, almost devastated when she saw that her father neglected her. But then, as the Yajna ceremony was starting, she saw that not only was she neglected, but Shiva had also been neglected. There was, for all the devatas, there is a section of the sacrifice. And even if a particular devata is not there, the sacrifice portion has to be given for those devatas. The sacrifices are at different levels. Sometimes the sacrifice is performed by a great person or a great great, or it is very well performed, then the devatas may come personally and receive sacrifice. But other times, the devatas may not come personally, but still, if the sacrifice is done properly according to the proper chanting of mantras and proper practices, then the devatas invisibly accept that portion of the sacrifice. But to not offer that sacrifice itself, that is outrageous. And when Dakshina saw this, she felt so utterly rejected that she felt not only is my father not respecting me, not even acknowledging me, he's not even acknowledging my husband. And at that time she decided, she told Dakshina that you, Shiva is such a flawless person, but what are you doing? You are finding fault in a person who is this flawless. We have multiple relationships. And we could say that whenever we form a relationship, say a husband-wife relationship, that is the primary bond. Across generations, there can be a relationship between parents and children. That's the secondary bond. And for her, she saw that this is my primary relationship. And he's completely rejecting you. Rejecting me and rejecting my husband. She said that because you are such a vile disrespecter of great people, I want to have no connection with you. I want to have no connection with you. And then she sat in a mystic posture and she decided to end her life. Now when she sat in that posture, everybody understood what she was about to do. Even Daksha understood that. But he did nothing to stop her. How can it be? So normally, even a stranger is say about to commit suicide. If we see somebody about to commit suicide, we try to deter them, stop them. We don't do this. And not to speak of one's own daughter, how could he become so callous? That is because of how he was seeing her. So she saw that this is my home, this is my father. But Daksha stopped seeing her as his daughter. He saw her as what? As Shiva's wife. And because he saw her as Shiva's wife, and Shiva is the person who disrespected. Therefore, for me, she is now a means to get back at Shiva. Because he disrespected me, so I will neglect his wife. So, actually, this is the last point, which is quite important to make sense of why people deal with us in a particular way. That is, understand which category people are putting you in, which framework people are putting you in. So whenever we all deal with each other, we put everyone in a particular framework. So, oh, this is an Indian. Then we will talk in Indian language with them. Oh, this is a New Zealand, this is a king. Then we'll talk with English with them. If you see a particular person from a particular part of India, we might talk with them in a particular language. And it's not just language. It could be gender. If somebody is a child, maybe a small child, we might talk with them in a different way. So with the adult, we talk with them differently. So from a functional perspective, we often put people in certain categories. And that kind of categorization is essential for function. Otherwise, how would we know how to deal with people? But what happens when we put each other in categories? Now, what category who is putting us in? We may not always understand that problem. So Daksha, she was putting this my father. But he was not putting her in the category that you are my daughter. So quite often, when people deal with us, they are not, the way they deal with us is often not about us. It's about some category in which they have put us. And they just see us as a member of that category. But now, we might be a member of that category, but we might be a member of some other category also. So basically, this point is when others treat us in an inappropriate way, in a rude way or an angry way, it's helpful to not take others' actions personally. And you say, how can I? We are personalists. We are all personalists. We are meant to treat God as a person. We treat each other as persons. How can we not take others' actions personally? But the point is, often people's actions, although they are directed at us, they are not necessarily about us. So, when we take others' actions personally, at the time we start overwhelmed. So, in this case, Daksha had become so completely cold-hearted. It is, sometimes people fear that if I become too spiritual, I become too detached. And if I become detached, then I will not care for anyone. Yeah, it is possible that detachment can make us uncaring, but actually the opposite can also make us uncaring. If we are too attached to someone, then we care for that person or that thing, and then we don't care for anything else. So Daksha was so attached to his own prestige and to his own feeling that I have been disrespected, that he didn't care even for the life of someone. So at that time, if some person might behave in a terrible way with us, but we often might end up taking something personally when it is not about us so much. Everybody has their own issues going on inside them, and when they speak to us, it's like inside everybody's head there's a movie going on, and in that movie they are the stars, and everybody else is an extra. It's an extra. Now what happens, and I think now the cricket World Cup is going on, so the cricket mania is there, at least in India. Sometimes in India you see young people, they're walking along the road and suddenly they start bowling or they start batting. Now there is no cricket field, there is no ball, there is no bat, but the match is going on in their head. The match is going on in their head, and they are thinking that they are the next Virat Kohli or they're the next some champion bowler or whatever. And then somebody who sees from the outside perspective, what is this? But at least we understand, okay, this person was a cricket man. But if somebody didn't know about cricket, they say, what's going on? So when they are seeing their actions like this, suppose somebody is there in front of them, and they think, are you going to beat me with a stone? Well, they're not going to beat him with a stone. It might also happen that they will use hand, and the hand goes and hits someone. Now obviously they're hitting someone, it's a matter of concern. And proper action has to be taken. But it's not personal. So what happens when we take things too personally? Then we start getting into insecurity about ourselves. Maybe I did something wrong. It's one thing to think I did something wrong. It's quite another thing to think that maybe something is wrong with me. And even worse is that something is so wrong with me that it can never be fixed. And that's how people just plummet into feelings of unworthiness, unlovability, and then just feel like I can't go on. I can't go on my life at all. So small issues can become very big if we start taking things too personal. So now, how can we avoid taking things personally? Just by understanding that although people may be doing something to us, it is not necessarily to us personally. It is they're putting us in some category. It is that category that they think they're hitting out at. So when we have this, we can develop a little more resilience. And ultimately for us, when we understand that we are souls who are developing a relationship with Krishna. So now these broadly 4 principles that I talked about: understand other person's need, understand other person's perception, understand the other person's categorization, in what category they are putting us in. So ultimately we need a sense of spiritual self-worth. Spiritual self-worth means that we are all souls who are parts of Krishna. And irrespective of how people deal with us, Krishna still loves us. Krishna still cares for us. And Krishna's love for us is not based on who we are. It is based on who He is. He's the all-loving Lord of everyone. We may have done many bad things in our lives, and we may do many bad things also in the future. Of course, we don't want to do bad things, but we might do. But no matter how many wrong things we have done, we can never do anything which will make Krishna leave us in the world. Krishna will never abandon us. But Krishna is very close to us. Do you know how far Krishna is from us? What do you think?
Inside us.
He's inside us. So how far is he? Inside is very close. Yes, Krishna is just one thought away from us. At any time, any place, if we just try to think of Him in a devotional way, we can start feeling His presence. Now, of course, we need relationships in this world also. So we could say we have horizontal relationships and we have vertical relationships. So the vertical relationship may not substitute for a horizontal relationship. We can't say I relate with Krishna only and I don't care about people around me. I don't care whether people care about me. It doesn't work like that. But the vertical relationship can give us stability. So that even if there are ups and downs in our horizontal relationships, we can deal with them. We can weather those storms. Generally, if we have some anchor, say if waves are coming in an ocean, and when the wave is coming, I try to fight the wave. One wave comes, I try to force fight. How can I fight? How long can I fight it? But if we hold on to an anchor, once you hold on to the anchor, holding on the anchor is much easier than fighting the waves. So similarly, waves of respect and disrespect, loneliness and connectedness, and waves of ups and downs in the relationships will come. But if we stay connected with the Lord, then what will happen is, no matter how much we are strong in the waves, we won't get swept away. So our relationship with Krishna is our greatest asset. Greatest asset doesn't mean that it substitutes for other relationships, but it gives us strength by which we can weather the storms in the other relationships. And that's when we strengthen ourselves by connecting with Krishna. And connecting with Krishna is not a ritual. Oh, I just chant with Krishna, I go to a satsang. All this is good, but we have to find out ourselves. How best can I connect with Krishna? Something which reminds us of Krishna, something which gives us a personal inspiration to connect with Krishna. If we do that, then we will realize and we will feel Krishna's presence. We will feel the connection coming to Krishna's presence in our lives. Feel that strength. And that will help us not overreact. Many people around us seem to let us down or act in strange ways. And this way, by understanding Krishna's love for us, other principles we can start applying in a more mature way. that way, the vertical relationship can help us strengthen our horizontal relationship. And thus we can move forward in our day-to-day lives. So I'll summarize. I spoke today on the theme of principles for improving our relationships. I started by talking about the story of Daksha. I began by saying that when we study scripture, there can be many different things which might seem at different levels of believability or unbelievability. But the focus of scripture is not on matter, but on what matters. So what matters means, if you look at this room, what matters to us is not exactly how many tube lights are there or how many patches are there on the wall or the ceilings. It's what will help us along what will get us along the way and what will get in our way. So similarly, if you study scripture to understand what matters, how can we act in our lives and how we can not act so that it doesn't get into trouble. Dharma, that is the essential guideline that scripture gives us. So I talk about the story of Daksha Prajapati and his daughter, Dakshayani. So when Daksha was disrespected, he overreacted. And it was not even disrespect, it was a perceived disrespect. Because he was doing the religious ceremony not to please God, but to pander to his own ego, for his own prestige. So when Shiva didn't get up, he took it he overreacted to it. So often the underlying theme of all that I talked was that when people complain about a headache, they often have a stomach ache. So his overreaction, he is going on a tirade against Shiva, was not just because Shiva did not get up at that time. He felt that Shiva, intrinsically Shiva was unworthy. And he saw Shiva as his inferior, not as a superior. Not that he was one of the primal gods, but that he is my son-in-law and therefore junior to me. And when people get angry, if you try to, instead of just responding to their actions, if you try to understand their need, then we can respond better to them. So then I talked about how later on Parvati wanted to go back to for the next ceremony, next fire sacrifice. Shiva told her don't go. And still she went. So we all sometimes something might be told, some instruction might be for our protection, but we might see it as a restriction. And that led to the second point, understand people's perceptions. So a child might see the area outside the fence as a place of for fun, but the parent might see the place of danger. So as long as the perceptions are different, communications can't be effective. So to enhance this perception, sometimes we can ask them, why do you want to do this? Or why do you feel I should not do this? Rather than saying, I will do it, I will not do it. Well, you should do it, you should not do it. We try to understand each other's perception. Then that can help us arrive better understanding of each other. Then I talked about when Parvati went there, she was very vulnerable, but because she had left her husband to come there, and at that time when Daksha neglected her, she just couldn't bear it. Silence can speak louder than the loudest words at times. And she felt so betrayed, she felt utterly rejected by that. So generally, to come closer to each other, we need to understand each other's vulnerabilities and then help each other, not hurt each other by knowing their vulnerabilities. So even God puts himself from an invulnerable, omnipotent position to vulnerable position to facilitate closer relationships. So once we understand each other's vulnerabilities and then help them at that time, that can create such a close bond. It's like giving somebody water when they're dying of thirst will be seen as a far greater service than just give water normally. So although we might be lost in our own head, our lives, but if somebody is vulnerable, if we get out of our head and understand the vulnerabilities and help them when they're vulnerable, that will go a long way in helping the relationship. But if in strengthening the relationship, but in the vulnerability, if we neglect, that will be bad. But if we use the vulnerability to hurt them, that will be like a betrayal, and that can destroy the relationship. And then lastly, when Daksha became so cold-hearted that Sati Daksha was ready to lay down and her life, and still he did not stop. So the last point I said is, don't take each other's actions personally. Others' actions personally. Understand how they are categorizing us. So sometimes Sati thought that this is my father, but Daksha saw, it's not my father, he is not my daughter, she is Shiva's wife. So if we start seeing that when people are acting, they might be putting us in some other category entirely from what we are putting us, then we won't take their actions so personally. Everybody has a movie going inside their head, and that movie, we often just to be extras, they are the stars. So if we understand that, then we can avoid taking their actions too personally or overreact to it. And to be able to do this, then I talk about strengthening our vertical relationship with Krishna. People may leave us or people may not, sometimes they can let us down, but Krishna will never leave us. And Krishna is just one thought away from us. So if we find out how we can connect our thoughts with Krishna, do find out those devotional activities by which we can easily direct our thoughts toward Krishna, then we will have the inner strength by which we can weather whatever storms come upon us in our relationships and move forward more steadily. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So any questions or comments? Yes, please.
Prabhuji, I was just thinking that you have told us 4 principles for understanding the relationships. Sometimes in real life relationships, in spite of making your best efforts to understand the other person's desires, their perceptions, their needs, still you are not able to improve the relationship, bitterness still remains there, then in that case, can we presume that it has something to do with our previous janma, or maybe what we have brought from the previous life, and maybe accept it as a prarabdha and move on, and stop making any efforts for further improvement?
Okay. If despite our best efforts to try to improve a relationship, if things don't improve, then can we say that this is something from our past karma? Pradha karma, yes, certainly. We have to be very careful about how we use this attitude, because destiny can become a very convenient excuse for irresponsibilities. That means that this person is trying to be like this, and why should I waste my time and effort? So it could be, but we shouldn't presume that to be the explanation. As you rightly said, that we need to try our best. And sometimes it may be that even if it's distant, first of all we should see if there is something which can be explained in immediate terms. Did I do something wrong? Is this person thinking something about me which may not be true? So quite often conflicts come in relationships because two people are trading in different currencies. And suppose you give me something very valuable, and then I pay you in Indian national rupees. But if you are expecting payment in New Zealand dollars, and what is this? Suppose you did not know anything about INR. I give you something valuable, and you just give me some paper. Right? And you will be annoyed with me, and I think I gave you something so valuable, it's more than enough for this thing. So two people may be trading in different currencies. Now, what do you mean by currencies in terms of relationships? Different people value different things. For some people, the most important thing is, say, the time that you spend with them. It's like a father. The father might say his child wants to play. Maybe a young son wants to play cricket. And the father may say, I will get the most expensive bat, the most expensive bats, the most expensive cricket equipment for you. And that's how the father is expressing affection for the son. But the son may want, I don't want an expensive bat. When I am playing for my team, I want you to be there and watch my play. And father says, no, I get this expensive equipment for you. I have to work so hard that I can't come to it. The father feels that father is expressing love by giving some expensive gifts. But the son wants that love in terms not of the things but the presence. So both of them, they do love each other, but they are trading in different currencies. So in general, if in a relationship we are finding roadblocks, then we can try to check whether we are trading in different currencies. Now, how do we know which currency somebody is trading in? Broadly, you can say, look at two things. One is, what is it that we don't do? If we don't do, the other person keeps complaining for a long time. I was in Washington DC about a couple of months ago, and in Sunday class, one devotee asked a question. He said, do women have a very long memory? When somebody asks a question like this, it's a loaded question. So, my wife constantly keeps reminding me of something I did not do in 1977. So, then I told him that if she's still remembering that means it was so important for her. So now, of course, we're not going to fix that right now. It's 40, 50 years on now. But the point is, if somebody keeps complaining a lot about something, then rather than saying, why do you make a big thing about a small thing? Understand that that is the currency they are trading. And then try to, even if we can't address that at that time, try to address it. And the other way to understand it is, what is it if we do, they appreciate it a lot. So sometimes we might value another person, but we may never speak the words of appreciation. I was just talking with one devotee, and he became a devotee, and his wife, and he decided to marry. He married in his own community, and his wife had no idea about bhakti at all. And then she was from Bihar, from a remote background, from village background, and her parents told her, whatever your husband will do that. So then almost for 10-12 years they were practicing bhakti together now. Then I asked him, I said, did you ever thank your wife for supporting you, for taking up the bhakti which you took up? Our practices of bhakti are quite serious. It's not just like, let's say, answer names of Ram, chant so many around, for Krishna. It's quite a change that somebody has to make to practice. I said, no. He said, why should I thank her? She's my wife, she's supposed to do this. So I said, no. For her it's a significant change. And if she had not done this, how much trouble would have been for her? And he said, I don't know. You go back home, you tell her this. And next time I visit India, in Mumbai, so I told him, next time when I meet you, I'm going to ask you whether you do it or not. So I told him that, and after a few weeks, I was in America at that time, he sent me a message. He said, I told this to my wife, and he says, I have never seen her as happy as she was when I told her this. So for him, it was just a few words of acknowledgement or appreciation. But when he did that, it was a big thing for her. So for her, those words of appreciation, that was the currency which she was trading. So basically, first we understand and try to address that. Understand the currency which they are trading. And then afterwards, gradually, we can also tell the other person what is the currency which we are trading. That means, and this is very important. If this is not done, then I feel as if you don't care. Instead of just complaining, why don't you do this? You keep forgetting it, you keep neglecting it. So once we start understanding each other's currencies, then it becomes even a very bitter relationship can at least become less bitter. And as far as the prarabdha is concerned, even in that, even if something is destined, but it may not be destined for life. Just like so many things in our life, sometimes in our job, we go through a difficult phase. We might be just working as well as we were working earlier, but suddenly a good project is taken away from us. We don't get a good appraisal. So sometimes in our job we might go to bad phases despite we not doing much. And then the bad phase changes and then things improve after that. So similarly, in our relationship also we might go through a bad phase.
That is what I meant.
No, but the point I'm making is that bad phase may not be permanent. So if we start thinking, oh, this is destined to be like this and this person is destined to be like this, then we may stop trying. So I would say stop trying means that we don't care at all for the relationship. In every relationship, there is an obligatory part and there is a voluntary part. If you have a particular relationship, the obligatory part saying, you take care of something at home, take care of finances, take care of certain things. The voluntary part is where we connect at an emotional level, personal level, share our vulnerabilities. So we might not do the voluntary part so much if we are not getting a proper reciprocation connection. But at least the obligatory part we keep doing. And if we stop doing that, then what will happen? Even if that destined phase ends, still by our actions, by our negligence, we may have created so much rupture that it may be impossible to repair that. That's why we do our part, and this is where karmaeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That we are not just serving that person, we are actually serving Krishna to that person. So that way we can move on. But certainly, if we don't get reciprocation, we can lower our expectations, but not stop trying entirely. Does that answer your question? Any other questions or comments? Yes,
Thank you so much for the lecture. The lecture was really nice. I have two questions actually. So it's based on the routine life that I have seen, and it's very general questions. The one thing that you just mentioned, that keep trying to make sure that you improve your relationship, and just not stop by saying that, oh, this person can't improve, or just make perception in your mind. But my question is that you have a fight, say somehow between husband and wife, right? And you settle down that fight saying that, okay, fine, I won't repeat that thing again in future, and then the fight just stops there. But then later on, maybe after a month, or maybe a couple of months later, they do fight again on some other topic, and that conversation, the other person reminds the person that, oh, remember that you did this mistake last time and I forget you, and now you just did this one, and then the fight becomes a big thing, So how one can improve on that thing? So that's my first question. And the second one is that you have a bad terms with someone, and you really want to improve that thing with the person, but the other person doesn't want to talk to you, but then that person keep talking negative about you to the other person and keep doing that, whether you know that he or she is doing that for you. So how you tackle that situation, because that situation is really hard, and that makes you irritate so well that she just wants to go and smash her face or his face and say that, why you are doing this? If you don't want to talk to me, then keep your mouth shut.
So the first question is, about, say, people bring up the past incidents in every future interaction. Yes, sometimes close relationships make us excellent scorekeepers. Oh, you did like that at that time, you did like that at that time, you did like that at that time. So actually, it's ultimately relationships are not meant for us to get even. It is to get along. No, you did this to me, so I will do this to you now. So 2-3 things we could do to deal with this is, all of us have certain hurts which we keep concealed within us. And if some things are really strongly there, then we need some healthy forum where we can express that. Maybe once a month or once a fortnight or once in a few months, we just cut out the world and spend time with each other. And not just spend time accusing each other, but try to do some activity which bonds us together. Maybe read some spiritually uplifting work or go to some peaceful place. And then, once we have created that stability, that foundation of stability, then bring up some issues, not in an accusative way, but just a way of expressing the concerns. Because what happens, sometimes some wounds, some hurts are minor, and we just forget it and kind of lets it heal them. But sometimes some hurts, we conceal them, but they are not minor, or they stay on and they surface again. Anger, when we restrict it inside our heart. Because like certain objects, if we bury them inside the ground, then they become fossil fuel. That can be burned. So like that anger, when it is buried inside us, it grows into hatred. So anger is very hot-headed. It's like a very impulsive. But hatred is cold-blooded. Hatred means basically we know the other person's vulnerability and then hit where it hurts. So that can be very painful. So it's best if such hurts are there, address them properly, or have at least try to create a forum where they can be addressed properly. And then, as it is possibly, avoid bringing them up. Now, the other person brings them up also. If we can have a forum like this, maybe depending on whatever frequency, where we can have honest connection with each other, then that helps a lot. Apart from that, if we could also recognize that sometimes when we all get angry, it's like when we get angry, we start just trying to hit the other person with whatever comes in our hands. Sometimes physically we might throw some objects, but we don't throw that, but verbally we throw accusations. We throw something. So when that happens, again, if we stick to the issue at hand, it's like they're saying they're saying this issue, but let's focus on addressing the issue at hand. Then at least at that time the issue can be addressed. But if we get carried away, you bring this up and I'll bring that up, and then you bring that up and then you bring that up, then the small thing becomes very big. So those two things, like having some healthy forum for addressing, so that those hurts don't get buried inside us. And secondly, trying to stick to the issue at that time. Okay, even if the other person, okay, that's okay, let's discuss that later. Let's focus on this side. Then we can minimize the escalation of the issues. Okay, and then as far as the second question about, what was the second question, sorry?
Did you want to improve relationships?
Yeah, if you want to improve relationship, the other person keeps speaking negative about us to others. Yeah, broadly there are three options for us when this happens. One is confrontation, second is clarification, third is neglect. What do you mean that confrontation means? We just go to the other person and not confront in the sense of accusing, but confront in the sense that we can just, if they are telling a particular version of what happened. It quite happens often whenever you hear a story. There are usually three sides of the story. My side, your side, and the right side. So what happens is that they may actually feel that that's the way it is. So instead of, sometimes you might refer to that, why you speak like this about me? That can just become like we are accusing them, and then they become defensive, and then we start fighting over that. But it's just that we could just completely, you could say, non-emotional way say, this incident had happened, and this is what had happened with that. So we needn't even refer to that person that you are speaking like this about me, but just tell this is what had happened. And then you say, no, it is not like this, or I heard like this. Then that gives us the opportunity to clarify. As soon as we start any discussion that we start with, why are you doing like this? What happens is it immediately becomes, it's most likely that we are attacking that person, and then they will retaliate. So we could start it, and this is how it happened. In general, say if we cut our hair has no nerves. So cutting hair is not that painful. But say if somebody is shaving and while cutting the hair, they cut skin, then blood comes out, it's more painful. But sometimes when somebody is giving an incision, then when they are taking blood out, if they cut a nerve, it pains much more. So the closer we get to the nerve, the greater is the pain. So for all of us, the rightness of our actions, the rightness of our understandings. As soon as somebody accuses that our actions are wrong, or our understanding also is wrong, that's cutting too close to the nerve. And when we cut too close to the nerve, the pain is so much that we react to the pain more than to the intent. Now the doctor might be cutting maybe to just take some blood test or whatever, but we react to that. So whenever if somebody is speaking something wrong about us also, it's best if you can avoid cutting close to the nerve. It's not very easy, but if you understand this principle, instead of saying that, why are you speaking like this about me? Okay, this was what happened in the situation. Then you say, no, but this also happened. Oh, okay, yeah. But this was how it was. So that's one way you can confront, not in a confrontationalist way, but confront in the sense of just talk with them. If they're not ready to listen to us at all, the second option could be that clarification. That means, at least to some people who are important for us, we can tell them this is what actually happened. This is what is being told, but this was what happened. So now we cannot do clarification for everyone. Sometimes that just makes things worse. But a few important people who really matter for us, we can clarify to them. And third is neglect. Neglect means that what happens, even if people speak negative about us, this is Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga means everybody's memory is very short. So, and everybody is looking for, you could say, the latest gossip. So if right now, what they are speaking about us, that is the latest gossip. And it's fresh right now. But as soon as some new gossip comes up, we will become old news. And it will go away. So we don't have to worry too much about it. Moreover, what happens, although if people hear something about us, they might hold it against us temporarily. That will cause some reservation. But overall, people are going to deal with us based primarily on how we deal with them. So if in the long run, if they see our actions are not the way they have heard about us, then they will not hold those conceptions too strongly against us. And if they are going to do that, then maybe we don't need to have too close a relationship with people who are that judgmental. Not that we reject them, but then we don't have to worry too much if we try to cultivate a relationship with someone, we are nice with them, and there is one thing they hear about us, just reject everything about us and start judging us. Then they are not really the kind of people whom we can count on. And we will spend too much time on how they perceive us. Basically, that person, if we try to confront them so that we change their understanding, or we clarify so that we can change the understanding of some people who are important to us, or we neglect and just continue our way of normal living, and our actions will gradually, either just the passage of time will change and that will become old news, or our actions will speak louder in the world and things will get adjusted. Does that answer your question?
So then, you said the three things, conflict, clarification, and then neglect. Does this apply if the person is a devotee?
Yes.
But isn't it that if we confront a devotee, that becomes a Vaishnava now?
Okay. Is confronting a devotee a Vaishnava aparadh? Sometimes we become very paranoid about what is an offense. Offenses, there can be various degrees of offenses. Now, one level of offense, it is said if you see a devotee and you are not happy, that is also an offense. Now, that's very difficult, especially if you are interacting regularly with some person and doing services with them. Then, we see them and we know they are going to give me some service. We will not feel happy at that. And that's like a very minor offense. The really serious offenses are where we have some envy in our heart and we want to pull down the other person. Say, if we are a good singer and somebody else is also a good singer, and then people start praising that person. And when everybody is praising, he's such a good singer. See? Have you seen how much prasad he is? So what are we doing? We're doing something to pull down the other person. Of course, people say how much prasad he is. It's harmless, but sometimes there can be much harsher aspersions that can be cast also. So the point is that we have to see, especially if you are not pulling down someone, we just communicating. Then that confrontation is not an offense. Although they might feel that way, but we have to function in our moment. And one aspect of functioning is guhyam akhyati puchyati. We have to open our heart and speak it to others. The other person also has to hear our heart. So if something is hurting us quite a bit, and that is occupying a place in our heart, and if we don't open that heart, then we are not having that loving exchange. Now this particular exchange might not be loving, because there is a lot of tension in it. But the point is, this kind of tension, when it's resolved, only then loving exchange will be possible. So opening our heart is also part of a loving exchange. So if our intent is not to attack the other person, then that's not an offense. Offense is primarily when we are trying to pull down the other person. So thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji ki jai.